Okay, so are you ready to kind of blur the lines a little bit today?
Always up for a good blurry line. What do we have?
We're going deep into the life of Countess Elizabeth Bathory. You might know her as the Blood Countess.
Ah, yes. The Blood Countess. A name that definitely sparks curiosity.
We have a lot to go through with her. Historical accounts, analysis, even some folklore. And we're going to try to figure out, was she a cruel monster? Was she a victim of circumstance? Or was she something totally different? Something in between?
See, that's what makes her so fascinating to me, at least. I mean, her case really forces us to look at power and gender and how rumors can get all mixed up together to create, a legacy that's captivating and controversial all at the same time.
Yeah, because when you first hear about it, you're like, oh, this noblewoman accused of all these crazy things. But then as you dig deeper, you start to see the political intrigue, you see the conflicting accounts, centuries of just speculation. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think we got to start with the basics, right? Elizabeth Bathory was born in 1560, one of the most powerful families in all of Hungary.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine a family with connections to royalty, military leaders, and even a serial killer.
Whoa, whoa, wait. Serial killer in the family.
Ah,
That's a lot to unpack.
it really is. It definitely adds a layer of intrigue to the whole story. But even without that connection, I mean, Elizabeth's upbringing was full of privilege, influence. Her family's connections gave her access to education and opportunities that most women during that time could only dream of.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. She spoke all sorts of languages, like Greek and Latin. It tells you something about her intellectual curiosity and her strategic thinking.
I mean, both of those things could be very, very valuable, but also very, very threatening during those times.
Exactly. And it really starts to matter as we look closer at her marriage. She was 15 when she married Frank Nobility.
At 15?
And this wasn't just like a love match, no, this was strategic. This solidified the Bathory family's position in the Hungarian elite.
And not as D himself. I mean, he wasn't just some random nobleman, was he?
Oh, absolutely not. This guy was a war hero, known for his ruthlessness, especially in those battles against the Ottoman Empire. I mean, he was even called the Black Knight of Hungary. That's how scary this guy was on the battlefield.
Wow, Black Knight of Hungary.
Right. So imagine this. You have Elizabeth, smart, ambitious, married to this, let's just say, powerful and brutal man. I mean, that's a recipe for some seriously complex power dynamics, don't you think?
Oh yeah, you can kind of feel the tension building already.
Yeah.
So they're this power couple, living in castles, surrounded by wealth, influence. When do things start to take a turn? When do the whispers of cruelty start?
Well, it seems like the first hints of trouble were in the early 1600s. Rumors about how Elizabeth was treating her servants started going around, especially the young women.
Yeah.
No, it's important to remember these were rumors, but they painted a pretty scary picture of what life was like in that household, one full of fear and violence.
So what kind of rumors were we talking about here?
Accusations of physical abuse, torture, even some strange, disturbing acts. Some people said she used needles to prick her servants, burned them with hot irons, forced them to stand outside in the freezing cold winter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's even one description, really vivid, saying she used honey to attract stinging insects, to torment her victims.
That's horrifying. It's hard to even imagine that level of cruelty.
And it gets worse. After her husband died in 1604, the rumors, they kind of escalated.
I see.
See, with Nobility gone, Elizabeth inherited a lot, like a lot of land and money. So all of a sudden, she was one of the richest and most powerful women in the entire region.
Wow.
So think about it. You have this widow, extremely wealthy, surrounded by rumors of sadistic behavior.
Yeah, it's like a real-life Gothic novel, isn't it?
Oh, it totally is. It really has all the elements.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Were these just jealous rumors? Or was there actually something darker going on?
So we have this powerful widow, whispers of brutality, and just this growing sense of unease around Elizabeth Bathory. But let's not forget, we're dealing with rumors here. Accusations. Not like cold, hard facts. How do we know what's true? What's been sensationalized over time?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's so easy to get caught up in all the drama, especially with historical figures like Bathory. But you got to remember, we're talking about power dynamics, personal motivations, a legal system that, let's be honest, wasn't exactly fair or impartial.
Right, we can't just be like, oh, well, everyone said it, so it must be true. We got to look at who benefits from Elizabeth's downfall. What role did her gender play in all this?
Exactly. Think about it. 16th century Hungary. A woman, wealthy, independent, that was a threat. And Elizabeth, She refused to get remarried,
Oh, wow.
which, by the way, was super unusual for a woman of her status. She challenged those societal norms, and that probably made her a target, for anyone who wanted to take her money, take her power away.
So you're saying that maybe, just maybe, these rumors about her cruelty, they were exaggerated,
Right.
fabricated even, just to discredit her, make her an easier target.
It's definitely something to think about. Don't forget she was also Protestant in a mostly Catholic area.
Oh, right.
So you add that layer of religious tension. People used religion as a weapon back then, right? You could justify a lot. Persecution, seizing property, all in the name of religion. It was a messy time.
Wow, so we're talking politics, religion, personal vendettas. It's not just about whether she was cruel or not.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting. In 1610, Elizabeth is arrested. And the guy leading the investigation, her cousin, Count Georgi Thurzo.
Her cousin. Okay, wait, why is that so important? What's the big deal about her cousin leading the investigation?
Well, for starters, family inheritance. Thurzo stood to inherit some of Elizabeth's vast estate if she was found guilty. Plus, he was buddies with the king, Matthias II. And get this, the king owed Elizabeth a lot of money. A lot.
Wait, hold up. The king owed her money. And her cousin, who could inherit all her stuff, is the one in charge of the investigation. That sounds, I don't know, a little shady, a little convenient.
Right. It makes you wonder, how unbiased could this whole thing really be? And then you look at the evidence they used against her. It's mostly eyewitness accounts, servants, villagers. And sure, some of them agreed that she was cruel, but others, vague, contradictory. Some even admitted they were just repeating gossip.
Ah, the power of gossip.
And we can't forget, this was a time when torture was a perfectly acceptable interrogation method.
Oh, jeez.
Right. So who knows how many of those confessions were actually true, especially with all that political pressure. I mean, if you were in their shoes, wouldn't you say whatever they wanted to hear?
Probably. I mean, yeah, if someone's torturing you, you're going to say whatever they want you to say.
Exactly. And get this, they never even formally charged Elizabeth. Never gave her a trial.
Real.
Nope. Just put her under house arrest in her own castle, Kishete. Basically silenced her.
So even with all these people saying these horrible things about her, she never got to defend herself.
Nope. Not a chance. And that's what really gets me. It shows you how much power these guys had. And how easily they could use accusations, especially against a woman, to silence her, discredit her.
So it's possible she was innocent.
It's possible. We'll never really know. What we do know is that Elizabeth Bathory became the Blood Countess. That legend stuck. And those stories, bloodbaths, sadistic rituals, they spread like wildfire.
Right. Everyone's heard about the bloodbaths. It's like the one thing everyone knows about her.
Yeah.
That she bathed in the blood of virgins to stay young forever. It's terrifying. But didn't you say those stories came out later?
Much later. Like over a century after she died. Think about that. It wasn't in any of the original testimonies. It was never mentioned during the so-called investigation.
Interesting.
So how to get that so popular? Well, people love a good scary story, right? My guess. Folklore. Sensationalism. Maybe even some people deliberately trying to make her look worse. Turn her into this monster.
So if we take away the whole bloodbath thing, what are we actually left with?
We're left with a much more complex picture. Can we definitively say if she was guilty or not? No. But I think the historical record shows us one thing. We need to be skeptical, very skeptical, about those accusations against her.
So instead of assuming she was a straight-up villain, what if she was actually a victim, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, a woman who was too powerful, too independent for her own good?
It's a possibility, isn't it? And it reminds us that history is messy. It's not black and white. There are always other things going on. Power struggles, hidden agendas, biases that we don't even realize are there.
So what now? We've basically unraveled this Blood Countess legend, but we're still left with these two sides. The cruelty, the potential for injustice. How do we reconcile those two things? How do we make sense of her legacy?
That's the big question. And that's what we'll talk about in the last part of our deep dive. We'll look at the evidence again, see what those motivations might have been, and try to make some sense of Elizabeth Bathory's legacy.
So we've spent all this time talking about Elizabeth Bathory's life, trying to figure out how she became the Blood Countess. I feel like the more we learn, the less we actually know.
Right. It's like we've opened up this Pandora's box of intrigue and mystery.
It really is. On one hand, you have these horrific accusations, but on the other, it seems very possible that people were out to get her. that she was targeted because she was a powerful woman in a man's world.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about that whole bloodbath legend. We know that was probably blown way out of proportion after she died.
Right. Like, it almost feels like she was an easy target. People were already scared of powerful women.
Exactly. It taps into that deep-seated fear, the fear of women who don't follow the rules, women who want power and autonomy. It's like a warning, a way to keep women in their place.
It's kind of a pattern throughout history, isn't it? I mean, anytime you have a woman in a position of power, especially if she's challenging the norms.
Boom. Accusations, smear campaigns, anything to discredit her.
Yeah, it makes you think about how far we've come, but also how far we still have to go. I mean, even today, powerful women get labeled as bossy or aggressive just for doing their jobs.
It's true. It's sad, but true. And these biases, they shape how we view history. I mean, in Elizabeth's case, that Blood Countess story, it's completely overshadowed who she actually was. A real person with thoughts and feelings.
So what do we do with all this? How do we move forward knowing what we know now?
Well, I think the first step is accepting that history isn't about clear-cut answers. There isn't always a good guy and a bad guy. It's messy. And it's about looking at the past and understanding that people had different motivations, different biases, things we might not even realize are there.
Yeah, we can't just ignore the accusations. People probably did suffer,
Of course.
but at the same time, maybe Elizabeth's story was twisted, manipulated, to benefit the people in power.
Right. It's about holding both of those ideas at the same time, recognizing that maybe there was cruelty, maybe there was injustice, and trying to figure out how our own biases shape the way we look at things.
So what's the takeaway here? As we finish up our deep dive into the world of Elizabeth Bathory, what have we learned?
Well, for me, it's a reminder to be skeptical, to question everything. Don't just accept the popular version of events. Dig deeper. Look for the hidden stories, the voices that were silenced.
And maybe, just maybe, we can all be a little more understanding, a little more compassionate when it comes to judging people from the past, especially those who've been demonized or turned into scary stories. Because, let's face it, history is full of gray areas, and those gray areas, they're the most interesting parts.